Alright, this is how you go about adding tape to your piece of burlap so that we don't get fraying, which is when the edges of your burlap start to unravel because it's just woven. If you remember from our weaving project that we did, if you didn't glue it to the sides, it would start to unravel. So we're going to need to take some time, make sure that we don't have things unravel as we're working with them. So you'll need your piece of burlap, and this will also allow us to write our names and keep our materials kind of all together. So we'll be able to write our names on these without writing our names on the actual burlap itself. So that'll work really nicely for us. So you'll need your piece of burlap and your tape. So I'm just taking a strip of tape that is a little bit longer than my width of my burlap, okay? And then you're just gonna kind of try your best to get it halfway, like your tape, so that it's halfway on the burlap and halfway off. And then you just peel it up. Okay, and flip it over. So now the sticky side of my tape is sticking up over here. And I'm gonna grab another piece of tape. Similar length, doesn't need to be perfect. And I'm just gonna kind of try my best to align it so that they're like overlapping as best as we can get them. Okay, we're doing it like this instead of folding it over, just because it will help with keeping everything together and nice. And now you have this nice little edge that you can hold on to as you're working and as we're going through stuff. Okay, so you're gonna do one edge and then you're gonna flip it over and then you're gonna do your other edge. Okay, same way, same process. Grab a piece of tape, lay it down so that it's halfway on the burlap and halfway not on the burlap. It's okay if it's not perfect. Just try your best. Flip it over. Grab another piece of tape. Sticky side is now up. We're going to match the sticky sides together like so. And now our burlap is all ready for us to start weaving, or not weaving, embroidering, okay? So this should help keep it all together. If you really want it to be super secure, you may go ahead and do it on these other two edges. Same way, just to make it a nice square of tape. Like so. Getting emails. Okay, and then you can use a pair of scissors and just trim off these extra little tabs if you would like. Whoop. And then you can use a Sharpie or a pencil and just write your name on the tape. And that's all you need to do. And then write your class code too. So 4, and then whatever your class is. Cool? That's all you need to do. And then after you have this, you are ready to start planning out your embroidery and then getting your embroidery started. Thanks for watching. Alright, I have my burlap all ready to go and ready to get my design put on there. So again, this is my design. It says I love art. It's got a palette. Before you really get going, I would like you to go through and go over your lines in whatever color, just the basic color. So if you're like, I want this specific color of orange, just color it with orange on your piece of paper, but you can go ahead and be picky about it when you get to the actual embroidery thread. But just go through and choose what color and draw the lines with the color that you're wanting them to be with marker. To show you what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm just going over my lines really quickly. You can see I'm not filling in the hearts at all, or the shapes. I'm just doing the outlines. So remember, we're not filling in the stuff. We are just doing the line work, okay? And then, because you can't really do white marker, I'm just gonna go over my I heart art with a black pen or a black marker, just to know, but I know that I'm going to do that in white. Okay, you can kind of go like this and align it underneath your burlap. You can kind of see it through there. So that is the benefit of going over your design with marker, is that it can help you kind of see through the burlap. Okay, and then I'm going to take those same colors and I'm just going to start to draw right onto the burlap using those markers. Okay? And because they're the same color as our embroidery thread that we're going to use, we'll be able to cover up that marker as long as we're being careful and not going too far off of our plan and not, making our lines too thick, okay? But make sure that you're still keeping that extra inch, which some of it is covered up by your tape up here. But if you really need to know where it is, you can take another piece of tape and just kind of lay it down. So I know that I'm not gonna go above that tape line with my design. Okay? Fold that over. Once you're finished drawing with your markers, you are ready to start getting the embroidery thread. Alright, hi. This is going to be our review of what we do when we are doing embroidery using burlap and a needle and our thread. Last time we started by using embroidery thread, and you can still use embroidery thread, but you might find that the embroidery thread is a little thin, so I wanted to provide the option of having yarn available. Yarn is thicker, and so you can even see, if you look, it's like at least double or triple the thickness of an embroidery thread, so it might make your artwork pop a little bit more. So I'm gonna do the outside of my palette using this brown yarn, and I will go through and show you all the steps that we need to do when we are embroidering on burlap. Just a review, since a reminder, when you are threading it, you'll have a little piece of paper. You're going to fold it hot dog style, like a hot dog bun. You're going to take the end of your thread, one of the ends of your thread or your yarn, and you're going to place it into that hot dog bun, like so. And you don't want the one end poking out, so make sure that you give yourself a little bit of a gap between where the yarn ends and where the paper begins, okay? And then you're going to fold it up, so you're going to pinch the yarn in between the paper. Okay, I have it pinched in my fingers. And then if you're using yarn, I have these bigger needles that will work just fine for using yarn and the burlap. Because yarn is thicker, you need a needle that has a bigger eye, okay? So that's why I have these bigger needles that you can use. So you're gonna pinch it. While you're pinching it, you're gonna put it through the eye of the needle, your paper, and pull it through, okay? Just like this. Okay, now if you don't want your tail of your thread or your yarn to fall out of the needle a lot, you can give it yourself a little knot at the base of your needle and your thread. Okay, so I'm just gonna take it, I'm gonna make that circle, that circle with the X at the top. I'm gonna take that little tail, put it through the circle, and pull. Okay, just making a simple knot to keep that tail from coming out when you're sewing. Okay, then at the other end we need to tie a knot so that our yarn doesn't pull through the burlap. So again, making that circle with the X at the top, this tail is going to go not only around once, but around and around through that hole a couple of times. And then you're going to pull it slowly to make a nice big knot. Okay? Once you have this set up, you are ready to start embroidering. Okay? When we embroider, we always start by going up through the back so that all of our knots are on the back side of our artwork. Okay? So remember, we have the front and the back. So we're going to start coming up from the back, wherever you want to start, and you're just going to find a hole that your needle's going to go through. Okay? And you're going to pull it all the way until you hit that knot. Okay, so I pulled it all the way until my knot is flush and right next to my burlap. Okay, and now that you have your yarn coming out from the back onto the front, now we can go down the front to the back. Okay, and the running stitch, remember, is just a series of weaving between the front and the back. So I'm gonna go down from the front, and then I'm gonna flip it over, or just feel around from the back, just moving, giving myself just a tiny little gap just to make sure that it's locked in place. Okay, and then I can pull again till I feel that it's snug, that it's meeting resistance, and then I can go a couple spaces over, following my drawing lines, my pattern. Okay, and you can see, because I gave myself only a little tiny gap to lock that string in place on the back side, it doesn't really disrupt the pattern. It still kind of looks like a line. If I were to give myself like a big space between the front and the back, you would have a big gap in between those spots. Okay? So if you ever make a mistake and you want to undo it, you just need to put your needle back through that same hole that you went into. Okay? For demonstration purposes, I'm just going to do one more stitch but if I was actually doing this, I would go all the way around or until I ran out of yarn. So I'm doing one more stitch, okay? And I'm going to show you how to tie your string and finish the string so that you don't have stuff unraveling after you're done with a string color or a section, okay? So ideally this would be, I'd be all the way around, but since I am just doing this for demonstration, I'm going to show you. So when you are done with a color, you're going to flip your thing over, and I'm going to move this red string out of the way, so maybe so that you can see. So you see over here, this is my big knot that from when I started, and then I have the 2 locking stitches on the back that are helping keep my front strings in place, okay? You need to do this every so often, otherwise you're gonna have really flimsy stitching on the front. If you have really big gaps, it's gonna be really flimsy. So you need to lock it in place by doing this stitch in the back, okay? And I'm gonna so when I'm knotting and adding a knot on the back to finish it off, I'm gonna take my needle and I'm gonna go find the last back stitch, locking stitch that I did, and I'm gonna put my needle not through the burlap but under that loop, okay? So you see this loop, I'm putting my needle under it, and then I'm gonna pull it until I get a small circle like this. So I have this loop right here. Then I'm gonna take my needle and I'm gonna go under the loop and then under the loop one more time, okay? See, my needle's going through that loop. And then I'm going to slowly pull. I'm not pulling fast because we want to keep this looking nice. I'm going to pull it until I get a knot. Okay, you might need to maneuver it a little bit with your fingers, but once you do that, you should have a knot that is going to keep your stitches nice. Okay, and I look back on the back side or on the front side, and it still looks nice. My strings are still taut, and they're not going to unravel because I knotted it in the back. Okay, so that's the process. Just take your time. If you feel yourself getting frustrated, just set it down. Maybe go look for your next color. Find anything to help you kind of get in a better mindset. If you're frustrated, it's not going to work, so you need to be in a calm mindset. Okay, good luck.